Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis, and today I'm back with the opposition view, and I'm joined by Motty from the Stretford Paddock to talk everything Manchester United versus Everton. How are we doing, Jay?
Yeah, I'm okay, man. I'm just about getting over the derby now, the Derby Day defeat, another one. So, yeah, looking forward, looking to the future now rather than the past. That's my motto.
A load of local games in a row for you, isn't it? Man City, Everton, then of course Liverpool in the Cup next week. Loads at the same time, isn't it? Not ideal, really.
No, I said on the channel the other week, I said this could be the worst fortnight ever. Like, genuinely, this could no, at the Everton game, like if we lose that, that's horrible, but I can stomach it. But if we lose to City in the derby and then lose to Liverpool the FA Cup at Old Trafford, then yeah, this might be my last ever appearance on this channel because I might go and do something else.
Well, how was it, the City game? We'll have to talk about it because, of course, it was the most recent game. And you were in the game for spells. And, of course, when Rashford scored, there was a bit of hope there, wasn't there? But Man City are just relentless, aren't they?
They are, and listen, you can criticise Everton out this season, and you can criticise Manchester United this season, and I think you've got 11 defeats. They deserve criticism, and the manager deserves questions around him. But I think if you look at the players that were available, and you look at the Manchester City players that are available, I mean, we were on a bit of a hiding to nothing, to be honest with you. I mean, the irony is, you've got a 35-year-old centre back in Johnny Evans starting the game, and he's not even fit. He ends up coming off because he was carrying an injury. You've got Marcus Rashford, who's not a striker playing down the middle. He's not fit, according to reports. He was carrying a knock. You've got sort of a centre back at left back. You've got all this sort of mix and match going on. And Manchester City is just a completely different animal. You look at their bench compared to ours. The players that didn't get off their bench probably would have started for Manchester United. So I wasn't too. I'm always gutted about a Derby Day defeat. It's never easy to say. You know yourself. It's just it hits you differently. But I think in terms of analysing and judging the team, I don't think you can be too harsh on United because whilst we have been woeful this season, there's plenty of games where I will go in on the team. And you look at the Fulham game, the Bournemouth game, Palace, Brighton. There's been a lot. The City game, I kind of go, okay, it was minging, and I feel sick about it, but there's not much more I think the manager could have done with the players that are available. Maybe that's being a little bit negative, but I do feel in this game it was always going to be very, very difficult with the players we're missing and the players that he had to rely upon, and the fact that even some of the players he was relying upon were carrying knocks. It was an uphill struggle.
Yeah, and it was, I suppose, better than the season before. Of course, it just got away from you completely the season before. And your recent form's been quite weird because you were on a really good run and it seemed to coincide with Hoyland scoring goals, loads of wins in a row. And then suddenly this Fulham result comes out of nowhere. And of course, then a couple of weeks later, you go and lose to Man City. But is the form turning in a negative way? Would you say that Fulham result was an outlier or has this good run kind of stopped for Man United?
It's difficult to say because we've had these little spells. We had one in. It's bizarre because these things pop up where you'll go, United have been nominated, or United players have been nominated for Player of the Month, or the manager's been nominated for Manager of the Month, and you think, what? How? And then you look at it, you go, okay, yeah. I think in November we had a run where we basically won all our Premier League games without conceding a goal, and it kind of caught everyone by surprise because we've been so woeful in the cups. You forget that actually in the league for
Yeah.
that little spell we were all right. And then I think Rasmus Højlund's just picked up a gong for February because again we have a spell in February where you go, okay, there was quite a few wins there and quite a few decent results, but we're always in danger of it all just unraveling very quickly. And the Fulham game was really difficult to take because we'd had a little bit of good form. There was a lot of positivity. You looked at the way that Højlund, Garnacho, Mainu were all playing. Sort of always great to see those young players doing well. The front three seemed to be gelling, and then the wheels just sort of came off in that game. And then for the derby, again, just not really in it. And I think a big part of that as well is the players are missing. Højlund being out cost us. Lissandro Martinez being out cost us. He's a vital, vital player to Eric Ten Hag and the way he wants to play. Luke Shaw is another one who is out, of course. And as I mentioned earlier, he's playing a centre back at left back. And I like Victor Lindelof, but he's never a left back. And his performances there have proven that. I don't know why the manager persists with him. I know he's not got any other options, but it just doesn't work. So it's hard to sort of analyse United at the minute. We're just a weird team. I think you can sympathise with that being an Evertonian.
Oh,
We're just a
definitely.
team that there's weeks where you go, okay, something's happening here. This is looking all right. Yeah, I can feel the confidence getting back, and we might be all okay. And then a week later, you're watching Fulham giving you a lesson in football, and you're thinking, what is going on with this team and this manager?
Well, the guy we had on last week, AD from the Albion Roar, was talking about Everton Brighton, and he just said Manchester United are a very weird team. I don't know how we ended up talking about Man United in that game, but like you've said, that's just the way it is, isn't it? And the problem with Man United, one defeat is a bit of a crisis because there's so much spotlight all the time that it's almost made into a crisis if you lose one game, and that must be hard for the players and hard for the manager. But then at the end of the day, you're at Manchester United, so that's the pressure that comes with being at the biggest club in the country. So. And of course, we're going to say that on this channel, and I believe it as well.
Well
But yeah,
said.
and that's obviously right, isn't it? But the massive pressure being at Man United, obviously, you've got to have the right man in charge as well. What are you thinking of Eric Ten Hag at the moment? Because it seems like people are yo-yoing from keeping him, not keeping him. Of course, Jim Ratcliffe's coming now, and there's questions over whether he wants to keep him. Is it a bit of almost a trial run for him now as the end of the season as to whether he will still be there, or would you say the plan is to keep him for the long term?
It's difficult to say. I've spoken to a lot of journalists, and no one really seems to know what Ineos' thinking is around Eric Ten Hag. We had Andy Mitton on the channel on Monday, and Andy Mitton is a well-respected Manchester United journalist. He's a United fan as well. And I know Andy, I've known Andy for years, and he's someone that knows his stuff. And he was saying it feels as though Ineos are almost still making their mind up. Now, that's not, it's not confirmed. He said he wasn't, he doesn't know. It's just that's the impression he's getting because there's so little sort of stories or rumors or reports coming out about who is going to succeed Eric Ten Hag. You kind of get an inkling with Manchester United when something's going on. When Louis van Gaal was for the chop, we knew it was going to be Jose. Everyone knew that. It was like the worst kept secret in football. And if you look at the way the club handled it, which was appalling, it was like Louis van Gaal was still, lifting the FA Cup when he got his marching orders. There's not been anything like that. You don't look at it and go, okay, yeah, we're hearing that this manager's going to come in. And I wonder whether the club are just sort of thinking, okay, let's see where we're at the end of the season. Let's see if we have got Champions League football. Let's see if we've won a trophy. Obviously, the FA Cup's the only trophy we can win. Let's see how the players have responded. And let's see if this manager can sort of prove himself. Personally, I would like to see Eric Ten Hag be given a chance under this new sort of structure. I'd like to see him being given at least one season under Ineos. But whether he gets that, I don't know. And listen, I understand the other argument where United fans have had enough because 11 defeats in the Premier League this season is completely unacceptable. You said it there as a Manchester United manager under pressure. I remember speaking to journalists years ago, and he said that as a United manager, if you lose 3 games on the spin, no matter who you are, probably post Alex Ferguson, you're going to be under pressure. If you look at what Eric Ten Hag's done this season, getting knocked out of Europe at the first hurdle, getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup at home to Newcastle, losing 11 league games, including many at home as well, then you can't blame anyone for thinking we need to change a manager.
Yeah, and it's the lack of, I suppose, evident style as well, isn't it? You see around you teams like Tottenham, of course, Postecoglou's got that really recognisable way of playing. Jurgen Klopp's got that, although it'd be interesting to see what happens with them when he leaves. Man City and Arsenal, of course, and you guys want to be competing in that, and you want to look at your team and say that's the way that we play. Whereas a lot of the time with Man United, it seems like you can't really do that. And then as well with the whole fifth place thing this year. It might be until the end of the season when we determine whether Ten Hag's had a successful season. If you come fifth, you might not get Champions League, or you might get it, might you? So it might be a case of after we've found out basically what's happened in the Champions League. If he doesn't get Champions League, it's not successful. But if he does in the same position, it might be.
100%. Like how sort of the Champions League becomes a holy grail and it becomes the be all and end all. It's like if we get Champions League, then you can say, okay, that season is good enough. If we don't, it isn't. Even like I mentioned Lee Van Gaal earlier, he won the FA Cup. Yet we didn't get Champions League football. And I think the decision was made well before the FA Cup final. But when it became evident that United weren't going to make Champions League, he was gone. David Moyes, you know better than anyone. When he came into Manchester United, the day he was sacked was the day it became mathematically impossible for Manchester United to make the Champions League. That's what everyone cares about at the football club. Not the be all and end all. Eventually, what we want to get back to winning titles and winning the Champions League. But if you look at it from attracting players, from a revenue point of view, FFP and all that jazz, and just from sort of the kudos and the sort of the glamour and the stature that comes with being a Champions League club, then it's massive. It really is. So if Eric Ten Hag can get into the Champions League, even if it is through the back door with a fifth place finish, because there's a good chance that I almost say unfortunately will lead to Champions League football because that means that probably City or Arsenal or have done something well in the Champions League. Then I think he'll probably keep his job, but it's looking increasingly unlikely. And if we're just going off top four, I think we're 11 points off top four, which at this stage of the season for Manchester United is absolutely criminal.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable as well that you might cost yourselves your place in the Champions League by coming last in the group because you haven't helped the coefficient there, have you, by doing that? And looking at the Everton game specifically, you've emphasized now the importance of the league. So it isn't just a case of, right, are we really still thinking about the league? Because fifth place is obviously something you can still attain. Fourth does look difficult now, but fifth might get you Champions League. So this game's important as well as the Liverpool game next week, is it? And how are you feeling going into it?
Yeah, this game is huge. We need a response. You need a reaction from the Derby Day defeat. No disrespect to Everton, but and I say this with at my peril, but there's fewer games where you look at the table and you go, okay, that are easier than having a team that are near the bottom of the table at home. Whether not just that's not picking on Everton, but whether that's Everton, whether that's one of the other teams that are struggling on paper, you go, okay, you want a home tie against one of the teams that are in the bottom half, against the team as well. Historically, we've got a very good record against. It's Everton, one of the teams that I think
Especially at
since the
Old
Premier League,
Trafford.
especially Old Trafford, since the Premier League began, we've had a very, very good record against you guys. So there's no excuses really. You can't go, oh well, it was Everton, it was difficult, it was a game we were, they've always done well at Old Trafford. You haven't, and you're having a bit of a topsy turvy season to say the least yourselves. So there's no way United can turn around and go, oh, well, what do you expect? We have to put that behind us. We have to give ourselves a fighting chance of getting that top four. And I do hate must-win games. I hate when people say must-win game because then you lose and then people go, well, okay, what does that mean now the season's over? But I do feel that if United are going to get Champions League football, we have to win this one. We have to. We can't lose at home to Fulham and at the Etihad and at home to Everton in a relatively short space of time. You can't do that and then still hope to get Champions League football. We have to take all 3 points on Saturday. I think Saturday in it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no excuses.
That would become a bit more of a worry then, I think, if you lost to us, because then it is that cluster of games where things have started to go wrong. And things are going quite wrong for Everton really at the moment. We've not won in 10 games, which it's our worst winless run since 1994. So it's not going well in that sense. We aren't losing loads of games. We're drawing quite a few. So it's not quite as bad as if we lost 10 in a row, but it's not going well at all, really. Our main striker, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, hasn't scored in 21 games. So does that give you a bit more hope?
I get nightmares about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There's a clip if you ever see it on. He's been doing the rounds of me, Joe, and McCullough on the watch along for the 3-3. And there's just silence for about a minute when he scored that third and last minute, honestly, because that was the nail in the coffin of any chance of a title we had that season.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah.
been sort of around the top. We'd been top at Christmas, I think. And then we drew when we were leading, I think, three times, or we leading 3-1 or whatever it was in the last 10 minutes. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a name that always conjures up that memory. So I'm always wary of him. I'm always a little bit like, you can't ignore this guy because he's done it before against United. Obviously, 21 games without a goal is pretty horrific. I know the guy's had a lot of injury issues, and I do feel it for him in that respect. But that is a sort of stat that he's obviously going to want to put right. And if he scores at Old Trafford, if he helps you get any kind of result at Old Trafford, people forget or forgive the other 21 games. They'll remember this game and go, okay, look, he's got us a win at Old Trafford. That's what matters. So, yeah, he'll be up for it. He's got, in goals against us in the past. It kind of almost worries me, that stat. I know that sounds stupid, but the
People
fact
have
he's
said
not
that.
scored for so long, and he is a good player. He's not terrible. If he was rubbish, I'd tell you, I'd say I don't rate him. I'm not bothered about him, but I do rate him. I think he's a good player. He's just had, he's in poor form goal wise, and also he's had such a horrendous injury record. I do feel for him because there was a time not long ago when we were linked with him, if you remember.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
were saying he could end up at United. He
Yeah.
had that really good season for you guys, didn't he? Where he scored, was it sort of double figures or whatever it
Under
was in the
Ancelotti, yeah, yeah.
yeah, in the Premier League, and people going, there's a future England striker there. There's a sort of modern striker who's got the attributes you look for in a modern number nine. And then I remember just seeing like year in year out his injury record. It just seemed horrible. And I remember Sean Dice saying they were looking at how he sleeps and how he drives his
Oh, yeah.
car. And yeah, like is he doing something in his day to day routine that's aggravating these injuries because he just can't stay fit. So I do feel for him in that respect, but I'm not going to feel any sympathy for him on Saturday.
No, no.
I think, in all honesty, yes, he scored against us. Yes, he is a good player. but he hasn't scored for 21 games for a reason. And Manchester United, even with our injuries, should be able to cope with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We should, but doesn't mean we will.
He might not actually even start. There's a debate over who should start up front for us. Beto did play the last game and he missed a penalty and then rectified it by scoring and had a bit of a chaotic game. And I think that's what Beto is at the moment. He's still learning the Premier League. He's quite erratic and he's very unpredictable as well. So that can help him in some aspects, but it can also hinder him. He's one of those players who wasn't nurtured through an academy as such. He went through the lower league, so he's one of those more raw, unpolished forwards, which can help you at times. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin's a bit more refined, but then he's not got that unpredictability factor. So be interesting to see who starts with that. But the rest of the team, the wingers aren't really performing at the moment. Jack Harrison and Dwight McNeil are really struggling. In the Sean Dyche system, they have to track back quite a lot. So we don't see them get up that much. And when they do, there hasn't been much quality there lately. The defense has been the best thing for us this season. We've kept, I think Jordan Pickford's got the most clean sheets in the league now, but we haven't had a clean sheet in 5 games. So the worry is that we're starting to lose that defensive solidity as well. And that's what served us so well to pick up points this season. But away from home, the Brighton game, the most recent away game, that was in the second half a decent performance and a performance that I'd hope we can replicate in this game. We nearly won it as of a 95th minute equaliser from Lewis Dunk. So with Everton, I think it's a case of just staying in the game. That's what it is away from home for us. And Dyche has got a formula that works away from home. It seems to overall. We've had seasons where we've barely won any away games, so that's better than what it's previously been. But it's going to be really tough for us, but we just have to get that win. If we don't win this time, this weekend, then it'll be 11 games without a win, and we have 3 weeks without a game. So it really is a crucial one for Everton. What do you think of us as a whole?
As a team, I think you're hard to predict. I felt for you. I thought you rallied well when you got your 10 point deduction. I know it's been reduced to 6, but I think that came. I think that came around the time we played you at Goodison, didn't it? And
Yeah,
that
your
was
game
one
was
of
the
our
first
best.
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of our best performances of the season. It was right up there. Obviously, that wonderful goal as well from Alejandro Garnacho, and even to the point where Bruno's letting Marcus have a penalty
Yeah.
to get, it's like, what is going on here? I thought that was going to kickstart the season and it didn't. But you rallied really well. I think you won, was it 4 of your next games or whatever, 4 of your next five
We
games
did
or
really
something.
well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you just sort of almost erased that 10 point deduction, and now you've obviously got it reduced. There's a lot to like about Everton. You've got some good players. I just think you're in the situation you're in the table because you've got so many erratic players. I mean, I look at certain players, and there's times when I've watched Everton and I thought, oh yeah, he looks decent, he looks really good. And then there's other times when I've watched Everton and I think this team is just heading to the championship. I think Sean Dyche is a good manager. Obviously, he did well at Burnley. I think he probably doesn't get as much maybe respect as he should do because obviously they ended up getting relegated in the end. I know that wasn't on his watch, but he was still he'd been like the manager for most of that season. But I just feel that with Everton, there's almost like an unpredictability there. There's certain players that I look at, and I think they're good players. Jared Branthwaite, who we've been linked with, is a good player. I actually like James Tarkowski. I think he's a really good, another Manc as well. Jimmy Garner, obviously, he got from us. You mentioned there, obviously, Calvert-Lewin. But there's one or two who I think are lacking quality. You mentioned Dwight McNeil, and again, I'm loath to sort of mention anyone in case they do something against us. But for me, a winger should weigh in with goals and assists, and I think his record is shocking. I know he does defensive work. I know he does. But even when you got him from Burnley, I think he had 1 assist in 40 games or something. And I was like, seems like a bit of a funny move that to me. So I just feel for Everton that you've got players who on the day can do well, but they just probably don't do it enough to me. And I think, in all honesty, if you look at the two teams, even with injuries, United should, and I know I've said this before, probably said it before the Fulham game, said it before the Bournemouth game, I said it before the Palace game, but we should be beating Everton. And like I say, I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for you guys because, my enemy's enemy is my friend. And I think you hate Liverpool probably more than we do, which is
Yeah, yeah.
an achievement, to be honest with you. So there's always been that sort of camaraderie and that connection. But yeah, there's not going to be any friendliness in this game. We're desperate for points. You're desperate for points. I just can't make any excuses for the manager. If he doesn't get a win, then I don't see where he's going. I don't see how he keeps his job, to be honest with you. I think it could be that fatal. I think this could
Really?
be a game where if you lose Champions League football's out the window, and that might be not right there and then, but that might be where Ineos go, this isn't our guy.
Wow, that so it could be a decisive moment for them because maybe they won't
Yeah.
sack him straight after, but do you think it could be the
No.
point where they go, "That's it, yeah."
Yeah, well, I think if we don't get Champions League football, he'll struggle to keep his job. It's not. He might keep his job. We might. Let's say we finish sixth and he wins the FA Cup. Then they might go, okay, he's won a trophy, back-to-back trophies. Let's give the guy another a year or whatever. However, if we don't get Champions League football, we don't win a trophy, then I think he'll end up going. And I think if we lose this game, I don't see how we get Champions League football. I think we have to win this game. We have to. It's that vital because the games are running out. We're running out again. We're in March now. Like you said, you've got a 3 week break. We've obviously got the FA Cup game. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 11 games left. So if you lose that, obviously, if we lose that, there's 10 games left, and we could be in 13 points or 14 points behind Tottenham by that stage. I mean, it's not likely, is it? It's almost impossible. So yeah, this is a massive, massive game for both teams for different reasons, obviously.
Well, we're getting close to the running now, aren't we? And it's the game's just completely just disappear. I don't know how it goes so quick, but it does. And like we're at the end of another season, really. It's kind of the final stretch now. And in this game, key players wise, I'd say Amadou Onana is going to be the man that determines whether we have a good game. It's been lately when he's come on that he's got everyone else going. He's the one showing for the ball. He's the one that's really trying to make things happen. So I'd say he's our key man. But there's a man that I need to talk about Manchester United, and that's Anthony Martial, allegedly back in training this week. Rasmus Højlund may or may not be fit. Eric Ten Hag might be thinking, should we play Anthony Martial because he likes scoring against Everton? We know about that. He upset us at Wembley in 2016 and he's just continued to do so since. Is he kind of the key man for this game specifically, would you say? Or would you say there's another player we need to look out for?
I don't know how fit he is, and I don't know what his level of training is. It's just, I think people got excited when they saw his back in training just because of the fact there's this weird stat he has about against Everton, where Anthony Martial scored quite a few goals for Manchester United. He's not like he isn't, he isn't a goal scorer. I know he's had a difficult few seasons, but he does score goals. But his record against Everton is just weird. It's like he just almost scores every time he plays against you guys. And a couple of seasons ago, he scored one goal in the Premier League, and it was against Everton. It's like, he always seems to score against Everton. So I'm not sure how available. I think if he's available and Højlund isn't, I think he'll probably get picked because Marcus down the middle doesn't quite work. He's better on the left hand side. I don't know if he's going to be available. I'll be honest with you. There's not been any sort of concrete news that he's match ready. So I wouldn't be surprised if he misses out on this one and it's Marcus down the middle again, because I have an inkling that maybe Højlund isn't ready yet, and obviously with the Liverpool game coming up, they need to manage it a bit better. So I think you might end up seeing Marcus down the middle and then Anthony and Garnacho on either side or something like that. I think that might be our front three. But if Martial is even available from the bench, I'd like to see him on the bench because, like I said, that record against you guys. I don't want to bring up bad memories for you, but obviously go back to the FA Cup semi-final, the late winner there, lots of other goals as well. He just seems to love playing against Everton.
He does, mate. He does. And Everton fans know that all too well. We've obviously not won at Old Trafford since 2013. Brian Oviedo, you might remember that one under Martinez.
I
That was
do.
a brilliant day. Martinez's first season. We actually came fifth that year and we achieved 72 points, which pretty much would get you Champions League in any other season. But we didn't get it when it was our turn. And that's very unfortunate for me because that's probably the best season I've seen as an Everton fan as well. So that's disappointing. But hopefully we can replicate that finally all these years later, 11 years now. And we haven't beat you since the Anthony Gordon goal in the 1-0 victory in the Lampard season when we stayed up. So we're due a win. I'm hoping we can get one. We really need one, but I want to hear your score prediction first. What are you going with?
Um, I feel like we'll probably get over the line, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it'll be a tough game, and I think you guys will be up for it. You know the importance of this game in terms of if you get anything for it, it'll give you a lift. And like you said earlier, you've not had a win for quite a while, so I think it'll be a bit of a struggle. But I think we'll just about get through it. 2-1 to United.
Decent. So you think we're going to score then? That's an interesting shout because we haven't scored too many lately. Might be a set
I
piece though.
mean, if there's one team you want to play who's struggling to score, it's Manchester United. Trust me, because we're all over the gaff defensively. I mean, we actually did really well at City for a while, but then you probably saw it when the wheels came off. They came off massively, and in the end, I think the Haaland goal was an assist from Amrabat, and he wasn't helped by Casemiro's awful ball to him as well. So it was just like a comedy of errors. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think if you are going to get a goal anywhere or against United at any time, it'll be this season because defensively we're just so erratic. It's unreal.
I'll go with 2-2 then. That's a bit of a rogue one for me. I wasn't thinking it before, but that's kind of made me think now. Maybe we'll manage to get a couple on the break if you're leaving gaps. And then I've got no doubt that you'll probably score at home as well. Obviously, with the attacking quality you've got, Garnacho's looking really good at the moment. Rashford as well, starting to get a few goals again. Maybe he's really finding himself again, which would be good to see. Of course, a lot of people have a lot of respect for Marcus Rashford. So the game's going to be very interesting. But before you go, got a few quick fire questions for you. Okay. So, league predictions first. We want your title winners. We want where United are going to finish, and we want your bottom three. Go on.
Title winners. I mean, it's just awful, this, isn't it? It's horrible. It's probably worse for me because at least I don't think there's a massive hatred. I might be wrong for you guys towards City, but
Not really. It's that Gary Neville
yeah,
quote for you, isn't it?
yeah, it's like choosing who you want to sleep with your missus. It is. I mean, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm praying that Arsenal win the league because that is like I'm not that bothered if they win it. I think City will get over the line. I just do. I think they'll make it four in a row, unfortunately, for the league. I think where United will finish, I think we're probably giving ourselves a little bit too much to do to get into the top four. I'm going to say sixth. I think we might end up just missing out on Champions League football, whether fifth is a Champions League spot or not. And what was the other one? Sorry, what was your final? What was your other
So the bottom
question?
three.
The bottom three. Let me just. I think Sheffield United are doomed, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
they're as relegated as relegated can be. I can't see them turning it around. Burnley haven't got going, and I think they're out of it. Luton's home form is weird because they lose a lot of games, but they only just lose them, and they always put up a good fight. I'm just wondering whether Forest might end up getting sucked into it. I know they've played quite well and they've been unlucky. Um, I'll go Forest. I'll go Forest over Luton. So I'll go Sheffield United, Burnley, and Forest. I think you guys will be safe. I do.
That's good to know. They might have a new deduction coming as well. I suppose we could as well, but Nottingham Forest might have a really bad one because obviously they've erratically spent on players for quite a couple of years. So it's a bit of a worrying one for Forest fans. And finally, give me your three all-time favourite footballers. Can be Man United, can be non-Man United, anyone.
My three all-time favourite footballers. I'll go one United one. I'll go with Keno. Loved Keno. Loved everything about him. Just reminds me of that era as well when we were winning everything. Another player who I always loved was R9. If I'm going to go non-United, had everything. The only player I've seen get a standing ovation at Old Trafford for scoring against us. He's got a hat-trick against us for Real Madrid. And United fans just applauded him because that's all you can do when you've got a player of that quality who just basically destroys you. A phenomenal footballer. And it's a toss-up between Eric or Maradona. I'll go Maradona. Just I love Eric Cantona, but I think Maradona he's a bit. Eric reminds me of this sense that some players are more than just footballers, and I think with Maradona he's just a force of nature.
Yeah.
And I loved everything about him. I was lucky I got to see him once playing for the rest of the world in like a UNICEF game or something
Oh,
at
really?
Old Trafford. Yeah, it was weird. It was like him putting penalties past Jamie Theakston. It was really bizarre. But even that moment, just to see him, just to sort of watch him on the pitch was just great. So yeah, I'll go R9, Keno, and Maradona as my three.
Top bunch of players there, and even Maradona and Cantona are just two mavericks of the game, aren't they? You don't get as
Yeah.
many of them nowadays. Players who just really take it upon themselves to just drag a team through a game rather than working in a team setup always. They have so much individual class that they can win a game on their own, can't they?
Yeah, they can. And you look at Eric Cantona, he was the catalyst for it all. We hadn't won a title for 25, 26 years until he arrived. He comes in and he wins the title, back-to-back titles. Would have won another one straight away if he hadn't got suspended for kicking racism out of football.
Yeah.
And then obviously comes back and wins a double. Just I was fortunate enough to meet him last year, and it was like, no disrespect to my kids, but it was probably the best day of my life.
I don't blame you, mate, to be fair. What a player, and of course, a great bunch of players there. Thanks so much for coming on, Jay.
Always a pleasure, Ali. It's always good chatting to you guys, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Defo, so check out the Stretford Paddock. But that is all from the opposition view today. Fingers crossed Everton can finally get that win, end the rut, and go into a 3 week break feeling a bit better about ourselves, keeping that gap between Everton and the relegation zone. But that's all for now. Speak to you next time. See you in a bit.